Okay, let's start. Can you hear me well in the back? 잘 안 들려? 잘 들려? 잘 들려? 네. Okay, so last time we discussed about the 4 different perspectives of matrix multiplication. And then we studied about the vector equation and the matrix equation, right? So that was a way of simplifying our set of a linear system that has a multiple equations and multiple variables, right? And then in the case of a vector equation, I mean, let me just review briefly. So if we have a vector equation like this, so this is the first vector a1, a2, and a3, and then we have the linear combination coefficient x3, and then we have a b vector here, right? And then so in this case the left hand side is some linear combination of a1, a2, a3, right? And then we studied the notion of the span, right? So it's a collection of all the possible linear combinations of a1, a2, a3, a3, for example, right? And then in this case, when does our solution exist? Our solution exists when B is inside of the span of these span of these 3 vectors, right? That means B can be represented as some linear combination of a1, a2, and a3, right? So this is when we have a solution, right? And if it's an outside of our span, and then this is when we have no solution at all, right? And then when can we guarantee that we always have a solution? So suppose we have 4 equations, and so here how many variables do we have? Of course we have 3 variables, right? And then let's suppose we have 4 equations. That means we have like 4 different rows, right? That means a1, a2, a3, and also b are all living in 4-dimensional space, right? So they are simply 4-dimensional vector, right? Okay, and then even before looking at what the b vector is, if our span of these 3 vectors are actually the same as the entire space of R4, and then we can guarantee that we always have a solution regardless of any b, because this span will be our entire set, and thus b will always be in this 4-dimensional space, which is our which is the same as our span, right? So this was the theorem that we studied, right? But in this case, it is in this particular case it is not possible because we have a so our entire space is a four-dimensional space, and then we have only three vectors, right? So if we think about our span, and then let's suppose we incrementally expand our span by adding one vector at a time. So if we have a first vector of an A1, and then the span of this single vector will be just a single line, right? And then if we have a second vector, and then it will be expanded into this plane, right? And then if we have a third vector and adding it to our span, and then it will increase our span into this three-dimensional space, right? But if we have if our space is a four-dimensional space, intuitively, how many vectors do we need in order to cover the entire four-dimensional space? So it requires it needs four, right? So in this particular case, it is not true, right? It is not the case. But what if we have, like, for example, two-dimensional space where we only have two equations and three unknowns? In this case, usually we have like in the two-dimensional space, and then we have three vectors, right? So if A1 is this line and A2 is like this, and then we will cover the entire two-dimensional space, right? So they are living in this two-dimensional space where we have an x and y axis, right? And then by using these two, we can entirely cover up the R2, which is our entire universe, and that's when we can guarantee that we always have a solution, because this one will always be true, right? And when is, so in that case, when is true? I mean, when is this relationship true? Like, span of these are, so let's suppose we have two-dimensional space as an entire space, and then suppose our span is actually R2. So when is it true? So this was our theorem, theorem 4. So this is true when our matrix A has a pivot position in every row. Okay, so that was probably one of the most important parts. And so let's see. And so in this case, what is our coefficient matrix and also like augmented matrix? So we have a matrix. So suppose we have a matrix A here, and then the first column and second column and the third column will be formed by these three columns, and then we place B here. Okay, so that's how we create our augmented matrix, right? And then once we do the row reduction on this matrix, and then look at the pivot position, and then in every row that we have in our augmented matrix, okay, and then if we can find a pivot only up to this part, so like this part corresponding to our coefficient matrix, but not this P part, okay, not on this P part. If we can find the pivots for every row, okay, within this A part, okay, that means our pivot here, so in this example, so we have a 3 row here, and then we find the pivot here, right? And then so those pivots for each row are corresponding to our variable, not to the B part, right, or right hand side part. So in this case, there is no way to have a pivot on the last column, okay? So this is when we can guarantee that we always have a solution. That means, which means like this relationship is always, this relationship is true, or this equation is true, right? So, in other words, what does it mean that we have a pivot on the last column in our augmented matrix? That means like we have 0, 0, 0, 0, and yeah, so 3 here on the last entry. So that's when we have a pivot on the last column, and this is when we have no solution at all, right? And then this one is also the same as this, the situation where our 4 columns, for example, so we have a 4 different variables, and so we have a 4 vectors, right? And then the span of these 4 vectors does not entirely cover up our the entire universe. So in this case, we have 3-dimensional space as our entire universe because we have 3 and 3 for each column vector, right? So if we can find the pivot over here, then that's when our 4 vectors like this, okay, these 4 vectors are covering up the entire 3-dimensional space. But if we see, if we don't see the pivot in every row in this part, so for example, suppose this guy is our augmented matrix. That means, so we have a pivot here and pivot here, but no more pivots on the 3rd row. Okay, so in this case, even if we have a 4 different columns, okay, that doesn't give a pivot, or that doesn't have a pivot corresponding to every row in our coefficient matrix, right? Because in the last row, it didn't have a pivot corresponding to our variable part. Okay, so that's that makes it possible that we have this kind of column, and so this is the same as this 4 like span of these 4 columns here in this case is not covering up the entire space of an R3. Okay? Okay, so that was the review. And let's look at the quiz. Let's take the quiz, okay, for the next 5 minutes. Okay, here's a how. Yeah, please go to this website. 네. 자, 퀴즈 보죠, 퀴즈. 네. So please go to this website, socrative.com. Okay, so socrative.com. Okay, then enter the access code of LinAlg, okay, which means Korea University Linear Algebra. Okay, LinAlg. And don't do cheatings, okay? 네, 이름은, so please enter your student number, not your name, just the student number only. 2000, maybe 18 or 17, something like that. And yeah, please don't do cheating, okay? And yeah, basically don't believe your friend nearby. Okay, so the quiz will close at 네. 그러지 않아? Okay, so first you should click the student login. Student login. Okay. So if you look at the top right of the website, and then you should be able to see some menu button there, and then once you click it, and then you can see the student login. So once you click the student login, and then you have to enter this access code. KULINAL, and then put your student number, without entering your name, just the student number only. Teacher login 말고 student login. socrative.com, 그 다음에 student login, 네, 그 다음엔 KULINAL, 그 다음엔 여러분들의 학번 2017, 18, 이런 네, 이름은 실제 이름은 쓰지 말고 학번만 써주세요. 자, 그 다음에 동시에 내가 출석을 한번 부를게요. 김지수, 네, 이지민, 정우진, 김효경, 신용호, 최용주, 하인철, 유성동, 이승환, 임재민, 김영준, 임세인, 압두살로모프 아바덱, AHA 아하백, 압두살로모프 아하백, 없어요. 이다인, 티티폿, 진스, 기알펜, 낙스타드 안드레아, 고한건, 김민창, 없어요? 고한건, 김민창 모두 없죠? 그 다음에 하리마, 심천수, 후윤택, 소병희, 이유빈, 이유빈, 그다음에 조영민, 장유진, 송석원, 네. 김상진, 권영진, 박노경, 이상민, 전홍찬, 김승준,